here, so I'm going to leave this to dry now, and this to dry. So the bottom part I'll do now, and that's the purple glaze and painting into it with the heavy body opaque. So it's kind of like the same idea that we did with the waterfalls. On the sides of the waterfalls, we did the blue glaze, painted into it with the yellow, with the opaques. Same idea. So there's my purple glaze. Yeah, they have jury shows all the time. Oh, I do have some cadmium red, don't I? Yes, I do. Little tube of cadmium red. Look at that. And cadmium orange. Yeah, so when I graduated from university, I didn't know I didn't know how to paint any better than I did when I was 12. And I didn't know anything about how to make a living in this. It's like it's a mystery, right? To most people, like, how do you do that? And I mean, people ask me, even now, like, if I meet people, they say, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm an artist. Well, what do you mean? Oh, I paint. You make paintings. Yeah, but what do you do for a living? So, no, I sell paintings. Really? What does your wife do? How do you make a living? That's not possible. And I'm like, yeah, I totally get it. So the problem with the art, the problem with the professors at university is none of them are making a living selling their paintings either. They're either getting Canada Council grants to do these weird things that nobody wants to buy. Yeah. And they're living off their professor salaries. So.
What cad red is that?
So that's cadmium red light, cadmium orange, cad yellow medium, cobalt teal, and I didn't bring the chromium oxide green that I used here. I brought cypress green.
Oh.
That's different. Ben oui. Of course it is. I wouldn't use it. It's in the big wide world?
Yeah. I'm just curious.
Oh God.
Like I mean from sale at galleries and
out there now or out there in the world? Right now? I have 8 galleries, and they probably each have somewhere between 6 and 10 paintings each. Yeah.
But that's not the ones that you've sold, which are that many more, right?
How many I've sold? Oh, God, I have no idea. Thousands, I guess.
Thousands. Nice one.
Yeah.
What's the most expensive painting you've sold?
The biggest ones sell for about 8, 10, 12,000, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so this purple needs to stay wet. So we'll see how fast I can do it.
So, and what happened?
To who?
To how you learned how to sell your paintings?
Oh, I did learn how. Yeah.
Just thought I'd try again.
So you know what? You know how I learned? It's just the totally weirdest thing in the world. I learned through sports. So I'm an artist, of course, but I'm also like a serious Uber jock person.
Yeah.
So I used to play competitive racket sports. I used to play squash very competitively, and I used to play tournaments, and I used to coach, and when I was younger. So that was something that I did when I wasn't painting or. Wait, I have to focus on this. And how the hell did I get from playing squash to selling paintings, you're wondering? I know, right?
What color is that one?
That's how I got these purples in here. It's this blue tint and the teal mixed with the purple glaze.
That teal is a really nice color.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. Right. So I'm playing these tournaments, right?
Yeah.
Anybody know what the Pareto principle is? You ever heard of that?
No.
No. Okay. Well, it's real. You can look it up. So there I am playing tournaments, and I noticed as I was playing these tournaments, I noticed that like less than 5% of the players on the tournament circuit win over 90% of the tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
Less than 5%. The other 95%, then there's another 10 or 20% that are kind of close, then there's the rest.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I know, I watch tennis now, I play tennis. Same thing in tennis, like there's like 3 or 4 guys that win 90% of the tournaments. Federer and, those guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there I was. I had an epiphany one day. I was at the national championships tournament in Calgary, and I'm like the 10 or 20% that are sort of near but not at the top, right? So we're sitting around after the tournament, like we always did. And I'm scraping here. So we're sitting around the tournament, like we always did, and we're talking about what it takes to beat these 4 guys. Like there's these 4 dudes, and they're always winning the tournaments. And they're always in the semifinals and the quarterfinals. And once in a while they're going to lose, but more often than not, one of these guys is going to win this thing. And there I was with all these other athletes, and we're sitting around talking about what it takes to beat these guys. And 2 things were happening every time. This is what my epiphany was. 2 things. One was excuses. Oh, I was sick this week, I didn't have my racket strung properly, and I didn't have my proper shoes, and I was tired, and I had a bad referee, blah, blah, blah. Right? So there was excuses. So I ignored those. And then there was the other thing where all of these theories about what you need to do to beat these guys. Everybody had an opinion. And I was like, oh my God, I'm back in art school. Because in art school, everybody's sitting around going, what does it take to be successful? Oh, you have to be lucky. And good luck at that. And it's a blah, blah. And everybody had a theory about what it took to be successful in the art world. And I thought to myself, oh my God, I'm talking to the wrong people all this time. So I said, see you guys. And I went and I talked to these top players. And I said, what are you guys doing that puts you a notch above? What are you doing that the rest of us aren't doing?
Yeah.
And they said, well, the other thing I noticed was they were never with us. They were out training while we were
They were
around bitching about how we lost. Because every time they would lose a match, they would go out and train to make sure they didn't make that mistake the next time. Like, these guys were hardcore, right? I said, what are you guys doing that the rest of us aren't doing? And after years of listening to other artists, that's why I said when I came to BC, I didn't want to hang around with artists anymore. After years of listening to artists talk about what it takes to be successful, and if you're talking to somebody about something and how to be successful, if they're not already successful at whatever it is they're giving you an opinion about, then they're either wrong or they're not following their own advice, in which case, why would you listen to them? It's like, yeah, it's like there's a guy that weighs 400 pounds selling you a diet book. It's like, well, the diet either doesn't work or you're not using it and don't think much of it yourself, so no thanks. So after years of, you know how in those days there was no internet, so if you wanted to get into a gallery, you had to bring your paintings and make an appointment with the gallery owner, and you had to go down there and they'd look at your paintings and they go, yeah, no. So after being rejected by galleries and listening to artists, I thought, I need a new strategy. And so I did the same thing I did with my sports thing. I went and got advice from people who knew what it took to be successful. And I talked to them and I said, what do you do? And they said, well, why don't you come out and train with me? I was like, okay. And so then I changed my strategy with my art career, and I made appointments with galleries. And what I did is, instead of bringing my portfolio and asking them if they would take me on, what I did instead is I would make an appointment with galleries, and only successful galleries I would talk to. So if they'd been in business for at least 10 years and they were really well known, I would make an appointment. So I made an appointment with a few galleries like that, and I went there and I interviewed them. And I went and I had my list of questions, right? So I went to the galleries and I would say, can you tell me who your most successful artists are in your galleries? Because the art world is just like the sports world. 3% of the artists make 90% of the sales. So I said, who are your most successful artists? And the gallery owner would say, that one, and that one. They always have probably 5 to 10% of their artists that make 90% of their income. So I'd say, and then I'd say stuff like, well, what are these artists doing that the other ones aren't doing? And what is your definition of a good artist and successful artist? And what are the strategies and the attributes and skill sets that they have that the other ones don't have? And that's how I learned. And you know what the galleries often did? They'd say, are you an artist? Let me see your stuff. Because I was asking the right questions, right?
Yeah.
Told you, it was an interesting story, right?
Yeah.
It is.
Totally. How does it look?
Looks cool.
I did something else. You know what else I did?
What did you do, David?
Yeah.
We are actually listening.
Yeah.
We thought it was rhetorical.
Yeah.
I'm easily distracted by my painting, though. So because I was coaching and playing squash. I don't know if you know, squash is one of those elite sports. It's like golf and tennis, right? So rich people play, right?
Yeah.
So I have all these rich businessmen that would be playing squash, and they would take lessons with me, right?
Oh.
And these are like successful, like real estate developers and various things, right? So I thought to myself, I wonder what these guys would, how they would approach things if they were an artist.
Yeah.
So I said to a couple of them I got friends with, and I said to a couple, so I'll trade you a squash lesson if you let me pick your brain about business.
Yeah.
They were like, sure, because they're always into saving money, those dudes.
Yeah.
So they were like, sure. So I sat down with some of these guys and I said, if you were an artist, what would you do and how would you approach the business? And you know what was fun about that? Is that, you know what they did? Anybody guess? The what?
They get interested in you, but they also get interested in a different part of the work.
Yes. But the thing that surprised me the most was that they spent all the time asking me questions.
Uh-huh.
So I had this list of questions, and I'd say, well, what would you do? And they'd say, well, I don't know, what's the difference between selling a painting and a pair of shoes? I was like, I never thought of that.
Mm-hmm.
They said, well, what would you do if you had excess inventory? I don't know. And so they asked me all these business questions, and it got me thinking like a business person. That was huge.
Yeah.
And here I am teaching workshops to you guys. How fun is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I got you know that FCA organization I was telling you about? So I've done lots of teaching and writing and stuff for them over the years. And I guess about 10 or 12 years ago, this is the green glaze. I guess about 10 or 12 years ago, they had a big symposium, art symposium in Kelowna. And they invited 3 professional artists to come and do demos and presentations. So I happened to be one of them. And the organizer said, "What do you have? You're going to do a demo like I'm doing, right? You're going to do a demo for people." And then they had a big auditorium, and they had 300 people in the auditorium, and they had a stage, and they said, "We want all 3 of you to do like a 1 hour, 45-minute presentation of some sort." So I said, "Okay, what do you want me to talk about?" They said, "Well, the other 2 are talking about artsy things, so could you do a presentation on business and marketing?" I said, "Okay." So I put together this PowerPoint thing, and I did this presentation, and the auditorium's full of like artists, mostly artists, right? And I'm going through all this basic business marketing stuff, and everybody's sitting there, and they're like, it's like I'm talking Burmese or something. That
Yeah.
like, what the hell is he saying that for? It's fun. Oh, that's kind of glary, eh? It's starting to come together, though.
Yeah.
You know the average income for artists in Canada as of 2016, I think was the last time I checked. You can go to the Canada Revenue, you can get all these stats, right? So artists make, I think it was $28,000 a year is the average income.
Mm-hmm.
And so most of them, and these are artists that declare themselves as self-employed full-time artists, right? On their income tax returns. They're making $28,000 and most of them are making less than that. That's like the average.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a tough go.
Yeah.
And half of that money that artists make is from, it was a shocking thing to me. Half of artists' income in Canada, 50% of all artists' income in Canada comes from government grants.
Huh.
Half.
Wow.
What the? I know, right? So you guys are paying for that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Okay.
David, when you asked the art gallery owners what sold and why these three, why those three, why these three, was there a theme of like landscapes sell more than kitchen people or something like that? Was there categories that sold?
No. You know what was interesting about that, Katie? Is that the answer that I got were kind of a surprise to me because I was still thinking like an artist at the time.
Mm-hmm.
An artist's definition of a good artist and gallery's definition of a good artist, totally different.
Huh.
So artists always thinking about art stuff, like subject matter and colors and color theory and, oh, this so-and-so does such great paintings and good compositions and I really like their flower paintings or whatever, right? And galleries have a whole different criteria that has nothing to do with the art itself. Huh?
Is it like size or what are some of the things?
No, nothing to do with art. Nothing to do with the paintings. It's all about the person. That's one of the things that was a big deal, right? One of the things that's really hard for artists to get their heads around is it's not about the art. It's really not about the art. And artists are, but it's not. No, I'll give you an example to illustrate it. So let's say that a gallery decides to take you on, Katie, right? And they really like your work, and they have a clientele base that they think your work is a good fit for their clients, right? So they take you on. And then they get one of their important collectors comes into the gallery and sees your work for the first time. So they walk over to the painting and they're curious about it because it's new to them and they kind of like it. And so they go over to look at the painting and they're going to do two things. They're not going to ask about glazes and veils or anything like that, right? But what are they going to ask the gallery owner?
Yeah.
They're going to say, well, they're going to look at the name and say, okay, don't know Katie. They're going to say, tell me about Katie. Second thing they're going to say is, why should I invest in Katie? Not why should I buy the painting? Why should I invest in Katie? And that brings us to the definition of a good artist by a gallery is, it's not about composition design or how many letters you have by your name or if you went to Emily Carr, anything like that. It's about, are you consistent? Are you reliable? Are you honest? Are you dependable? Are you, if I ask you to do a show in 6 months, are you going to give me 18 paintings like I asked? Are you going to keep working hard and, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense too, from a business perspective.
From a business perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Because they lose money if they're not,
Oh, for sure.
right?
I went to when I was hiking in the Rockies once, and one of my galleries. I have a gallery in Invermere in the Rockies. Nice gallery, good gallery. So they found out I was hiking in the area, so they said, "Oh, can you come and have dinner with us? Because one of your biggest collectors is in town, and him and his wife want to meet you." So I barely made it in time because I got laid off the trail, so I came to the restaurant in my sweaty hiking clothes, and I met these two people, right? And so the gallery owner turns to me, and during the meal, she turns to me and she says, this guy owns over 30 of your paintings. He has a collection of hundreds of paintings. He spent $150,000 in my gallery alone last year.
Wow.
So she's basically saying, thank you so much for coming, because this guy means a lot to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when a gallery is taking you, taking Katie on, what she wants to do is she wants to be able to trust that you're not going to screw up her relationship with that person.
Mm-hmm.
So if 6 months down the road, if she has confidence in you and says, I really believe in this person, you should invest in her, then, and 6 months down the road, you decide, nah, I'm gonna quit painting and start playing squash. Or I'm gonna start painting like random Picasso style kittens instead. So if you drop the ball on her, like you just ruined her trust with that client. So
Yeah.
gallery owners are very conscious of, okay, I'm distracted again. Okay.
David, you paint trees, right? David?
Yes.
You paint trees.
Yes.
And the trees you do all the time. Would you say that that's kind of your bread and butter? Like
Yes.
just the extra stuff that you can always consistently count on?
Yeah, my trees were sort of my signature brand kind of thing that I got most known for.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. This is the opaque yellow highlights I'm putting on again. So the other funny thing related to that story is after I got kind of successful in the business, I would have galleries, I still do, I have galleries asking me if I know any good artists. At the beginning, when it first started happening, I was really curious about that because, well, I don't hang around with artists very much, so I don't know. But also, like a high-end gallery, they'll get dozens of requests, like every month, like dozens of artists coming to them to be represented. So they're seeing hundreds of artists every year. I see you guys, you know, in stuff, right? But it's not. It's like, I don't know that as many artists, and I'm like, why are you asking me? Like, you get applications by the hundreds. Yeah. And I finally get it. Like, they want to know if I know any artists that have the same skill set and attributes that I have. Mm-hmm. And they know that I would know that, mm-hmm. right? Because they look at these paintings and they go, because it's not about...
You have to charge them that information, right?
Yeah, I should. No, I've helped a lot of artists get their careers going that way. Okay. So now I'm going to do some more opaque highlights, and then I can put my darks in. I'm going to go back. Now that this stuff is all dry, I can go back and put in these opaque passages. One of the things that's kind of cool about this business though is it's a happy business. Like if you're painting and making paintings and people are buying your paintings, that's a pretty good. That's pretty good, right? It's kind of positive. Like if you're I don't know, like if you're a policeman or a fireman or what Linda does, like people you're dealing with every day, they're having a bad day.
Yeah.
Like if you're a lawyer, it's like your clients are having a bad time of it. And everybody I meet, like they're pretty happy. They've got disposable income and they're buying art and life is good. So there's something to be said for that, I guess. Okay. What time is it, guys?
3:30.
It's 3:30?
Yeah.
Well, that's great. We'll be finished by 4. That's lovely.
Are we actually gonna be finished by then?
I'm going to be leaving at 4, so
Okay.
you can do whatever you want. Okay, so blue glaze again. We're gonna do, or I'm gonna do what I did with that. Oh wait, before I get there. Forgot to put my orange, my cadmium red popper in there. The reason I did that, those really bold red streak down through that way. There's a composition thing for you. So most of this painting has these really strong sweeping diagonals all pulling your eyes this way. So I wanted to create a counter diagonal down here to just counterbalance those. And the red, because it's the hottest and strongest colors, doesn't need to be as big and as dominant as those to have a counterbalance effect. So there's a composition tip for you. So I kind of have to wait for this first layer to dry up a bit before I put my opaques on again. Otherwise, they'll just start blending.